Two people, same age, same number on their birth certificate. One of them is energetic, sharp, physically capable, traveling, playing with their grandkids, running their own life without a second thought. The other is exhausted by midday, on multiple medications, struggling with things that used to be effortless. Same age, completely different bodies. This isn't luck, and it's not just genetics. There's a biological explanation, and once you understand it, the way you think about your health will never quite be the same. Most people assume aging is a slow, steady decline, like a battery that gradually loses charge year by year, but that's not actually what happens. Aging, especially after 40, tends to happen in drops. A bad illness here, an injury there, a prolonged period of stress that you never quite fully recovered from. Each event leaves you at a slightly lower baseline than before. And the reason those drops get harder to come back from as you get older isn't random. It comes down to three biological processes that quietly accelerate in midlife, processes that most people have never heard of, let alone understand. In this video, we're going to break all three down in plain language: what they are, how they speed up aging, what makes them worse, and, most importantly, what actually works to slow them down. Let's get into it. Reason 1. Your cellular energy system is losing power. Every cell in your body runs on energy, and that energy is produced by tiny structures inside each cell called mitochondria. Think of them as microscopic power stations. Your heart cells, your brain cells, your muscle cells, none of them function without mitochondria doing their job properly. Here's the problem. As we get older, two things happen at the same time. We produce fewer mitochondria, and the ones we still have become less efficient at generating energy. The result isn't dramatic. You won't wake up one morning and feel it all at once. It's a gradual dimming, a lower energy ceiling that becomes the new normal. Recovering from physical effort takes longer. Mental sharpness starts to feel less reliable. That baseline fatigue that doesn't go away with a good night's sleep, this is part of the reason why. Scientists call this mitochondrial dysfunction, and it's recognized as one of the core drivers of biological aging. But here's what matters most. This decline isn't purely inevitable. It's significantly accelerated by how you live. Sitting for long hours, chronic stress, poor sleep, and diets heavy in ultra-processed food all actively damage mitochondrial function, often years before people notice the effects. The people who feel like they've aged a decade in just 2 years aren't always just getting older. They're aging inside a daily lifestyle that's attacking their cellular energy system from multiple directions at once. The good news? Mitochondria are unusually responsive to exercise. Aerobic activity, sustained, consistent cardio, triggers the body to actually produce new mitochondria. It's one of the rare cases in biology where you can meaningfully push back against this kind of decline. Not permanently, not completely, but enough to change how you feel and function every day. Reason 2. Your hormonal environment is shifting in ways most people don't expect. After 40, the hormonal landscape of your body changes in ways that touch almost everything. Energy, mood, body composition, recovery, brain function, sleep quality. Most people have a vague sense that hormones are involved in aging. Few understand specifically how. Let's go through the key ones. Testosterone, and this applies to both men and women, just differently, declines steadily from the mid-30s onward. By the late 50s, many men have significantly less testosterone than they did at their peak. It drives muscle growth, supports bone density, regulates mood and motivation, and plays a central role in recovery from exercise. When it drops, all of those things become harder to maintain. For women, the more significant shift is the decline in estrogen and progesterone through perimenopause and menopause. Estrogen has protective effects on the heart, the brain, bone density, and metabolic health. When it drops, often faster and earlier than expected, women frequently experience rapid changes in body composition, sleep, mood, and energy that can feel almost sudden. Then there's insulin resistance, the one most people haven't connected to aging. Over time, cells become less responsive to insulin, the hormone that manages blood sugar. When this happens, the body has to produce more insulin to do the same job. Energy becomes unstable. Fat accumulates more easily, particularly around the abdomen. And if it continues to progress, it sets the stage for prediabetes and eventually type 2 diabetes, which triggers its own cascade of long-term health consequences. And finally, cortisol, the stress hormone. Cortisol isn't inherently harmful, but in midlife, when life tends to become objectively more demanding, aging parents, financial pressure, career peaks, less sleep, cortisol can run chronically elevated. And chronically high cortisol does something specific and damaging. It breaks down muscle tissue. It promotes fat storage around the organs. It slows recovery and suppresses immune function. Here's the critical point though. You can't stop testosterone declining. You can't prevent menopause, but you absolutely can influence how fast insulin resistance develops, how high cortisol runs, and how quickly muscle is lost. Those are the variables within your control, and they matter enormously. Resistance training is consistently the most evidence-backed intervention for hormonal health in midlife. It improves insulin sensitivity, supports healthy hormone levels, and directly counteracts the muscle-wasting effects of elevated cortisol. The research behind this is extensive and consistent. Reason 3. Low-grade inflammation is running in the background, silently. This is the one most people have never heard of, and it may be the most important of the three. When most people hear the word inflammation, they picture something visible: a swollen knee, a sore throat, the redness around a healing cut. That kind of short-term inflammation is actually healthy. It's the immune system doing exactly what it should. What we're talking about here is completely different. Chronic low-grade inflammation is invisible. It has no obvious symptoms. You can't see it or feel it directly, but it runs silently in the background, measurable through blood markers, and its long-term consequences are profound. This type of inflammation is now recognized as a central driver of virtually every major age-related disease: heart disease, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's, cancer, and autoimmune conditions. Researchers have even given it a name, inflammaging, because of how tightly it maps onto the aging process. What causes it? The list is familiar, but the connection to aging often isn't made clearly enough. Visceral fat, the fat stored around your internal organs rather than under your skin, is metabolically active in a way most people don't realize. It constantly releases inflammatory molecules into the bloodstream. The more of it you carry, the higher your background inflammation. Ultra-processed food drives inflammation through multiple pathways, disrupting gut bacteria, spiking blood sugar repeatedly, and triggering inflammatory signals that run continuously in the background. Poor sleep, even just 1 or 2 significantly disrupted nights, produces measurable increases in inflammatory markers. Chronically, the damage compounds. The hidden link: why muscle is the most underrated factor in aging. Most people think about muscle in terms of appearance or gym performance, but muscle is an organ, one of the most important organs in your body for long-term metabolic health. Here's why that framing matters. Muscle tissue is your body's primary system for absorbing blood sugar after meals. When you have good muscle mass, blood sugar is managed efficiently and insulin sensitivity stays high. When you lose muscle, blood sugar becomes harder to regulate. Insulin resistance worsens. The metabolic environment your body operates in starts to deteriorate, but that's not all. When muscle contracts, it releases chemical signals, called myokines, that travel to other organs and do remarkable things. Some reduce inflammation, some support heart and liver function, some cross directly into the brain and support the growth of new brain cells. Every time your muscles contract, whether that's a squat, a walk, or carrying groceries up the stairs, they're sending protective signals to essentially every other organ in your body. This is why muscle loss, which begins in your 30s and accelerates significantly after 50, is one of the most underappreciated drivers of accelerated aging. Less muscle means more insulin resistance, more inflammation, fewer protective signals to the brain, and a metabolic environment where all 3 aging processes we've discussed get significantly worse. What actually works? The practical part. This is where it gets hopeful, because the biology is more responsive than most people expect. Resistance training, at least 2 to 3 times per week, is the most direct intervention available. Not casual movement, progressive, deliberate resistance work. It builds and preserves muscle. It stimulates the creation of new mitochondria. It improves insulin sensitivity. It reduces inflammatory markers. It sends protective signals to the brain. The evidence base is overwhelming and the mechanisms are clear. Daily movement matters separately from structured exercise. Sitting for long hours is an independent risk factor for cardiovascular disease and early death, even in people who exercise regularly. The 1,000 small movements that used to fill a day, walking, climbing stairs, standing, have been quietly removed from modern life. Replacing them deliberately matters more than most people realize. Protein intake needs to increase with age, not stay the same. As we get older, muscle becomes less responsive to dietary protein as a signal to repair and build. Research suggests that people over 40 who are active need significantly more protein per day than standard dietary guidelines recommend. Spreading that protein across meals, rather than concentrating it in one sitting, improves how effectively the body uses it. Sleep is a physiological priority, not a lifestyle preference. Growth hormone, central to muscle repair and fat metabolism, is released predominantly during sleep. The brain clears waste products during sleep. Cortisol resets during sleep. Insulin sensitivity is profoundly affected by sleep quality. And yet this is often the first thing sacrificed in midlife, precisely when it matters most. Reducing ultra-processed food lowers the inflammatory load that is quietly slowing recovery, worsening metabolism, and accelerating brain aging in the background. The goal isn't perfection. It's that the majority of what you eat, most of the time, comes from whole food sources. Aging is inevitable. No one's disputing that. But rapid, accelerated aging, the kind that leaves people functionally old in their 50s, exhausted and managing multiple health conditions, that is not inevitable. It's the result of three biological processes that compound and feed each other: declining mitochondrial function, a shifting hormonal environment, and chronic low-grade inflammation. And all three are significantly shaped by how you live. The gap between the person who is sharp, mobile, and independent at 75 and the person who is struggling at 58 is rarely explained by genetics alone. It's almost always explained by what happened in the decades in between, the lifestyle that either protected their biology or quietly accelerated its decline. If this gave you a clearer picture of what's happening inside your body after 40, consider sharing it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to go deeper on any of the topics we covered today, muscle, sleep, inflammation, or hormones, subscribe and check out the related videos on this channel. There's a lot more where this came from.